Welcome to another episode of the Chrissy Mayer Podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us right now on iTunes, please go and leave a 5-star review. They can say just about anything. For example, from Giraffe Killa, CM is cool. You are funny and stuff. Pretty hair too. Oh, thanks, Giraffe Killa. Well, today it's very unwashed and very full of dry shampoo. But yeah, see, was that so hard? Just go and leave a 5-star review. I want to talk about my sponsor, Silk City Hot Sauce. If you need some spice in your life, go to silkcityhotsauce.com. Use the promo code CMP. You're going to get 15% off your entire order. Plus, these guys, they love you. They love the podcast. They're going to throw in for free a bottle of cherry sriracha and some cool stickers. JL, do you like hot sauce at all? Are you a hot sauce guy?
I keep it in my purse. I have a bottle in my purse. No, I'm not a big hot sauce person. Sorry. Yes, and I should be yes-ending, right?
No, you should be honest. Yeah. I did not have you on because of your feelings on hot sauce. But if you guys like hot sauce, go to silkcity.com and get your hot sauce. They have a lot of super cool flavors. Use the promo code CMP. You're going to get 15% off your entire order. You know what else is hot? Good sex, JL. This episode is also sponsored by Blue Chew. Fellas, you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen at bluechew.com. Blue, like the color blue. Blue Chew brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. You can take it any day, night, whenever, even on a full stomach, on an empty stomach, so you can be ready for whenever an opportunity arises. Ladies, you can get in on this too and buy some for your man. Blue Chew is made in the USA. It's prescribed online by licensed physicians, so you don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to make small talk with people at the pharmacy, and it's even cheaper than a pharmacy. And they prepare it and ship it right to your house in a discreet package. There's no awkwardness, and you don't have to leave your house. If you could benefit from more confidence where it counts, Blue Chew is the fast and easy way to increase your performance. And right now we have a special deal for you. Go to bluechew.com, use the promo code CMP, get your first shipment free. Just pay $5 in shipping with the code CMP. That's blue, BLUE, chew.com. Use the code CMP. Try it for free. It's the better, cheaper choice. I thank them for sponsoring this podcast. This podcast is free, so if you want to support me, support them. And use the code CMP. Woo! I'm very excited to announce I'm going to be headlining at Tiff's Ale House in Morris Plains, New Jersey on October 21st. That's a Wednesday. Get your tickets now. Mike Figs will be featuring and Bob Levy will be hosting that. I can also tell you that I have a show coming up in Coney Island, November 12th. That is with Stand Up New York. Those tickets I think are just now on sale, and I will update you with who else will be on that as soon as I know. I'm so excited to have this guy on the podcast today. He's got 2 weekly podcasts. Making Podcasts Great Again, I know, is the one that's kind of blown up recently. He's got over 10 million views on all of his videos on YouTube. He's got 8 albums. He's got a super fire Trump impression that you can even get a little clip of it on Cameo right now. It's JL Cauvin. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you. Yes, and $58 in my bank account for all that that I've done over 17 years. That's stand-up.
That is stand-up for you. Yeah, they never tell you in the beginning. They're like, well, you really have to be okay with possibly being broke for a while.
Oh, yeah. No, I have not done a gig in 2020, and I have made more money. It's sad because that's what I want to be doing most of all, and I'd like to translate some of my new quasi-fame into actual gigs. But I've made more money this year from comedy-related things than I've made in the previous 16 years of doing comedy combined.
And you've been doing it total for 17 years, you said?
Yeah, I started in law school in 2003. And, obviously those first few years, it's open mics, it's bringers. You can't really count that towards your earnings. Those are all negatives. But then you do the road and you're like, hey, this year, like a couple of years ago, like a few years I had, okay, half my money's been made from comedy, half from my day job. That's pretty good. Until you break through in a big way. You're like, hey, okay, I have enough reason to be flexible in my work because comedy's doing all right. And then the year I can't do a single gig other than a few Zoom shows and like one live podcast, I've made a lot of money, because obviously it seems most people just want people on their phone saying things in 90-second increments instead of shows. It's stand up. I have this fear, and I'm sorry to already start rambling, but I have this
Yes,
fear.
no, this is exactly what I want.
I have this fear that stand up is already turning into like the jazz of comedy, where it's going to be like a few cool hip cats are into like real comedy and everybody else is into a series of stupid things.
Yeah, it seems like, are we becoming record players? The people that have one, like, oh, you got to hear this, blow the dust off. It's stand up.
Yeah. I mean, as I joined TikTok against my will, like 2 months ago, just because I wasn't that interested in doing anything with it. But I realized it makes Instagram look like literature. You're like, oh, like,
does it really?
You know what I mean? Like, well, TikTok is just, it's like uncut, pure Instagram. Like, here, why do 3-minute videos or have all these hashtags when it can just be 20 seconds of a woman with big breasts lip syncing, and then a guy doing a backflip, and then a guy doing a 30-second workout. And then it's total, just, it's insane. And then you go to Instagram, you're like, this is so boring. Like 90 seconds of stand up or a picture. What's this?
Isn't that crazy that it's like, yeah, to me, TikTok was always very reminiscent of Vine, the Vine days. And it's definitely Instagram on crack. And I was like, well, what's the next evolution of this? Like, is it just like you turn on an app and it's just somebody goes, like for a second. And then. Yeah,
no, it's just going to be money shots, farts, and, I don't know, something else. That'll be the new thing in 2025.
Yeah. And it's like, is this market driven, or is this, are these apps created to fuck with our attention span? And
I think so. I mean, TikTok feels so precise. Like my girlfriend's TikTok, when she just scrolls through, is completely different than mine. Like TikTok has a very low opinion of me because it's literally it's like single moms with big breasts in Florida, and the occasional comedy clip, and the occasional like dude doing a dunk on an 11-foot basket. Like, and then it just recycles. It's different. It's
that
different
sounds
people
like
doing all
a wide
those.
Range of interests.
I guess, but I think I haven't given them enough to narrow it down. So they're like, man, he will like sports, goofy humor, and breasts. And I'm like, pretty much.
That's a
good
lot
job,
of guys.
China.
Yeah, good job, China. You definitely hit your stride with this Trump impression. You also do a really good Bernie. You put out something that I was just watching where it was like a comedy special of what seemed like almost everybody in his cabinet. So I was like, you're crushing it, JL. Like, and I've known you for years. It's been really cool to see you, pick up tons of followers, and just like you said, like made more money this year doing something that you never thought you could, live off of. I
feel like I became sort of a webcam girl, basically. Everything I'm doing is in like one of my bedrooms with a phone going, look at me doing an impression, and then I'll do a birthday message. It's like totally clothed. But other than that, I joke, I say, I basically got the B cups and career of the webcam girl on Euphoria right now, thanks to COVID. So I've got to get in shape. But it's very bizarre, and it's nice to have fans. It's nice to have blown up. But at the same time, it's still sort of tangential to what I really want to be doing. So, and I've noticed the difficulty I think will be in converting a lot of these sort of people who align with me politically and like my impressions. Because impressions, to me, I like doing impressions, but they're really not part of my stand-up act. They used to be when I first started out, and then I had life experience and other thoughts and became better at doing stand-up. So it was like, I'll share my own thoughts and jokes and stories instead of doing it in other people's voices. So the trick is for me going to be converting some of those people. I know, I've already seen it with jokes I've posted where, very progressive people, they don't mind me making jokes about Jeff Epstein and Donald Trump, like tag teaming teenagers, because it's the right side. But as soon as I make a Lane Bryant joke, they're like, delete this. And I'm like, what?
We can't, it's a person of size, JL. You can't say that they're overweight, fat, heavy. Do
No,
you?
it's a tricky balance I find myself in, because I am somebody left of center, and I do have lines that I don't cross, not necessarily within comedy, but in life, in the way when I'm sharing my real opinions on things. But I find it funny. I turned off a lot of MAGA people early on this year when I was blowing up. And I'm laughing at that because I go, I guarantee you most of you would like my stand-up. People cannot tell my politics from 90% of my stand-up. In fact, they see a big guy telling some jokes. Sometimes I think they think I'm some sort of like dangerous frat bro, which is totally not the truth. But then if you like my politics, sometimes those people will go, oh no, his stand-up was too rough. So we disapprove. So I'm trying to find this, I guess, middle ground of people who are like, yeah, I vote Democrat most of the time, but I also like, Greg Giraldo, Patrice O'Neill, and Bill Burr. And it's like those groups are becoming sort of like the country, I feel like, becoming further and further separated. I always thought like that was my dream, to just be like sort of the next Greg Giraldo, even when he was living. I didn't just say when he passed away. I was like, there's a spot.
Now's my chance.
I always wanted to, right. The lawyer comedian slot is now open, but that's who I always sort of wanted to be. And that's who, when I don't copy him, but that's sort of the sensibility that I sort of have in most of my stand-up. And it feels like there's less crossover between the two groups. You're either giving very pleasant, you're getting clapter, you're getting like, you're saying the right things and getting snaps and clapping.
Which you don't really want real comics don't want that.
No, I don't think I have one thing in my act that gets claps unless I'm intentionally setting them up for a punchline to come after. Like they think, oh yes, you're on our side. And then, no, I'm not. Or you're like saying the most heinous shit possible. And, you get guys just like screaming like, yeah. And you're like, well, no, I don't really feel that way. Like, don't try to form a group with me after the show based on that.
It must be really frustrating, JL, because like, right. Cause you're a real person. Like you have political beliefs in one area. Your stand-up is kind of, it's, you know what I mean? It's not a cookie cutter with your political beliefs. Like it's probably what, like you're saying, your fans that love you for your Trump impression and your tweets may not love your stand-up because you're not like a one-note guy. You're not, right. This is what I think the real danger is of identity politics and like the really strict guidelines that I feel like maybe our news puts on us, or our media, or I don't know if it's social media, or just like the machine overall. Like, right, we are kind of divided into these groups now, and it must feel really frustrating to be like, wow, I really want my success and my fans that love my Trump impression in my Twitter to translate to, I want these people to come see me do stand up. And then just from what I've noticed, like in my own stand-up history, like when I started stand-up, I was super liberal, and I've moved more center, and I've found that the more so the people that come to comedy shows and like love stand-up tend to be more center right. So I just I want to know how it feels to be like, well, shit, I don't want to change who I am to get butts in the seats. I don't want to change who I am to get more likes on Twitter. So because we were talking before we started recording that this one lady came after us both on Twitter. Like, you liked one of my tweets because I was doing a joke about Chrissy Teigen's public miscarriage, and you liked it. And then she was like, oh, I'm so disappointed in you, JL Cauvin, for liking this tweet.
She's like, why did I see this? It's because you liked it. You brought this shame into my home. Yeah, for me, that was one of those things that I don't do. I do jokes and material that comes to mind. I don't come with an agenda, and I don't try to shock people. I'm not really that shocking a comic. I might have a joke that is off-putting, but it's not like that's my set. But if you ask me, do you think it's funny that Chrissy Teigen had a miscarriage? I would say, of course not. But do I think that Chrissy's joke, different Chrissy, about it was a funny, well-constructed joke? Yes. And did I also, if you're asking me for a deeper truth, did I kind of agree with the premise of the joke? Yes. But that's not anybody mocking the genuine like pain that clearly would cause. They're celebrities, so they're fair game. And the fact that somebody like would come, like that's a type of joke that I probably wouldn't make right now on Twitter, because I'd say, you know, I just don't want the hassle. And some people might think, oh, that's dangerous, that's suppressing your speech. But I would say, no, it's okay, because I get it. Without context, somebody might see me and they think, oh, you're just the guy who does this. And now I'm bothered by that joke. So I leave stuff like that alone sometimes. But to be chastised for liking that joke was like sort of a new level. And I've found that has been happening more and more. And I guess part of that is I have a much larger audience now than I've ever had. So some of that I get you, like I'm prepared for. I go, you know what? It's a big world. It's a big following. Not everybody's going to like everything, but there is a divide, I think, in terms of how conservatives react to me and liberals, without getting too general. But one will say, I hate your politics. And I can argue that. I don't mind. I can argue that kind of like straight, that's a straight up argument to me, very face to face kind of thing. But when somebody is telling me like what jokes I can make, and it's like, I was a fan of yours until this joke. And I'm like, you're not a fan of mine because of one joke? Do you think I'm a horrible person because I made this joke? Then you shouldn't be a fan. If you really think I'm a terrible human being, don't be a fan. It's okay. I try not to be fans of people I think are awful human beings.
Yeah.
So, but it's weird trying to thread that, because it's harder to be like, dear fan who has liked the previous 9 posts I've made, I'm trying to retain you as a fan, but we have differences of opinion on how I should conduct my work. And I don't like being told how to do that, especially by somebody who doesn't seem to know what they're talking about. That's this weird, it's the difference between somebody who heckles you and says, fuck you, and you say, get them out of here, fuck you too. And the person who claps and talks over your punchlines, I was like, yeah, that is so fun. Did you hear that?
Like, you're ruining my next setup, you dick. Yeah.
Right, fan, please stop being an awful fan. Like, so I'm still navigating. It's you know, I'm getting better at it, and you try to navigate this. Because I'm one of those people who, I'm sure if we talk politics, if we do or not, I'm not somebody who outside of art has a problem with identity politics. Like I said, I'm much more left of center, but I am a big believer in, I'll laugh at something or I won't laugh at something. I will buy a ticket, I won't buy a ticket, but I don't ever tell people and say, you can't do that. You can't because I'm a big believer in free speech and free speech in comedy. And like the only time I've ever said anything bad about it, what a comedian said on stage in terms of they shouldn't have done that, was like Kramer screaming the N-word at people, because I was like, well, that's not a joke.
That wasn't even funny.
He wasn't doing a bit, right? He wasn't doing a bit. He was just angry.
Yeah, so, that was a meltdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I go, yeah, I didn't think that was funny, but I'm not like, you shouldn't do. Like, I'm like, you take the risks, you do what you want. But it's, if you are trying to do comedy, if you are within the space of a comedic effort, I can like it or not, but I don't sort of do the, no, don't do that. And when I see, it's always left of center people when it comes to my jokes who will say things like, delete this now. And I go, who are you?
Right. You know what it is?
And you're a fan, and you're a fan. Like, you followed me because you liked my comedy. You can't, if I do an album with 52 minutes of material and you dislike one bit, I don't even mind you if you say, I didn't care for that one, but otherwise great album, or, oh, pretty funny overall. But if you're like, yeah, I was a fan, and then you did that one bit and I'm no longer a fan.
Yeah, you know what it is, JL? Like in our stand-up, remember when we did stage shows? Yeah, like a person would send, I guess, display their disapproval by silence, right? And then they laugh at what's funny. Whereas Twitter, it's like, you hear some shit no matter what. Like, you hear, I don't like this joke, delete it, do better. That's always my least favorite. Do better, says the person who literally does nothing and puts nothing into the world and does nothing of, value. And
when
then
we did our show at Cape May, I remember when we did that winery show, I remember I wrote it up.
I love that venue. Yeah.
And what I liked about you going up first, and I think I wrote this in the write-up, my little road recaps that I do when I used to do comedy shows. And I like, because you pushed it and I could see where the crowd, it was, it's always tough. doing that, but I remember you did really well, but it was like you pushed the envelope and I said, oh, wow, that's nice. That's so much nicer for me now. Now I'm like, oh, I know where the parameters are. Yeah, just a thought that popped in my head.
Yes, it's like as if the
go.
audience was a butthole and I was a butt plug, and I was kind of making way for you.
Exactly.
Because I believe your politics isn't, honestly, at the end of the day, it's nobody's fucking business. And if somebody follows you because they love your Trump impression or any of your other impressions or anything that has to do, it's like you're following me for my comedy. It's like you kind of don't have a right, I think. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but it's like, it's hard to take you seriously. It's like, well, you're like, you followed me for comedy. You didn't follow me because I'm Tucker Carlson or Anderson Cooper and you like my hot news takes, it's like, you're following me to be entertained. To
be fair though, I do sometimes post obviously serious comments. So I can't totally block people off from that. But to me, I genuinely don't think people, like I said, that's why I said I feel like it's getting to be almost like jazz, where it's just this niche art form. Because and I've written about this before, where I feel like some comics get mad about getting criticism, and I certainly do too. But what the internet has done is I think it's made more avenues for money for comedians, even though it may not be the way I want to do it. Like, I'd rather be making half the money I'm making in clubs than on Cameo. As weird as that sounds, Cameo is nice. My bank account is nice right now, but that's not a career. That's not why I got into comedy. And I feel like, and I just had my first of what hopefully won't be too many brain farts, but
making money from comedy.
No, with people. Now comedy is so wide open and it's a currency. Everybody wants to be funny. Even if you're not a comedian, people are posting jokes and trying to I've received like 100 emails at least with people giving me, sketches I can use for my Trump impression. I know. And so everybody kind of thinks that because it's almost like the green room is now full of thousands of people. We're the comedians, but they're all in the green room because they have such access. And in a way, you have to accept some of that because there are more places to make revenue. There has been an advantage to this widening of the audience, but at the same time, it's cheapened comedy to people where I feel like there isn't as much respect for the people who really do it. And there's less of an understanding of comedy where now people read a joke and they're like, what is this? This is so mean. And it's like, oh no, this is like if you were in a comedy club, this would be totally okay and funny. Or mildly funny, but still totally okay. And instead people are like, oh, you're in my living room spreading this like mean comedy. And it's like, it comes with the territory, but it is undeniably very annoying with the broadening of the audience.
And it's also like the translation of the art, like whereas like these are jokes that you wouldn't be reading, you'd be hearing. And when you elicit laughs from an audience from what they're hearing, like they have no control over that. That's not something you can, your brain doesn't have time to judge it or like sign off on it. It's like a visceral body reaction. Is it like a laugh or a groan? And then on Twitter, you can't hear the laughs and groans. Somebody might laugh or groan. You might get what you would have wanted to get out of a club, but since they've got to appear a certain way on Twitter or to whoever their audience or friends are, they have to be like, oh no, I don't approve of this. You shouldn't talk about anybody's super public miscarriage. That's their own business, even though they do a photo shoot,
And that joke to me, it was so good. And it really, I feel like that was an example of, had it been, and I can be objective on this, had it been, they're obviously outspoken liberal celebrities, but had it been right-wing celebrities, I'm trying to think like somebody big, like Vince Vaughn isn't really too much of a dick. He's sort of like, people know his politics, but I don't think he's like outspoken. But had it been some
out there, like, who's out there that's a conservative, like celebrity?
Like John Voight always does his videos for Trump, like his weird, like I'm praying. I think he thinks Trump was sent by God. It always gets a little weirder than just conservative with John Voight. But somebody like that, had this happened, it would be, I can see the hypocrisy there where it would be fair game.
Of course. Yes, just like it's fair game to wish Trump that he would die from COVID. It's like it's somebody on the other side. It's like, You know, if somebody, I don't know, if Biden got COVID and people on the right were saying, I wish Biden would die from COVID, the left would be up in arms. It would be,
But
how
see,
dare you?
well, before we get to serious statements, so I would say if somebody made a joke about Biden dying.
Okay, jokes. Yes.
Totally not allowed. I can see. Whereas jokes about Trump, I've in fact made them. Now, I wouldn't make a Biden joke, but if someone, a comedian made a legitimately good Biden joke, I might not like it. I might like it, but I'm certainly not going to go, no way, man, or ma'am, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'd be like, either I'm going to register my disapproval by not doing anything, or I might give a like, which will lose me 1,000 followers because I'm going, it was a good joke. I
Did
agree.
It lose you?
I'm sad. No, I'm kidding. But Biden would be a bigger deal. If the joke was really good, I'd be like, that's why Jesselnick, I think I've heard him say this, but he really crafted his persona very smartly because he's like cancel proof. I think he said that because everybody expects the offensive, like the too soon. Like people expect too soon from him, whereas most people have to live in the space where it's like, no, that joke is not okay.
Yeah, it's almost like he kind of blew up at it like early on, and instead
right before
of
cancel.
Yes, and it's almost
like a lifetime pass right before they were revoked.
It's like if you get in the time of cancel, it sounds like required reading for high school or something. It's like it's almost if you blow up now, like in the last like 8 years or so, or mostly, I don't know, maybe last like 4 or 5. I don't know. I feel like it's been going on maybe 10, but it's like, right. If you like become famous in the time of cancel, you can also lose it all in the time of cancel. And like, I wanted to circle back to what you said before. This woman was like, I was a fan until I saw this. I don't buy that. I've seen that a lot. Not just with me, but with other comics. And I think that's bullshit. I don't think that person's a real fan, because if a person's a real fan of you, one tweet is not going to make or break them. I think they do that because they want to demonstrate their disapproval for you. And they think that the fan or the one fan is so important to you that they can get you to change your position or delete something because they think you're afraid of losing them, when it's really like someone who really knows their voice is going to be like, well, fuck you, you know?
And that's what the internet's done, is it's made sort of everybody is sort of central to their own experience. So like, I'm a fan of yours, therefore I'm the most important part of this relationship.
It's gross. It's fucking crazy. It's selfish. It's beyond.
The funny flip of that, I thought, was just was when I was losing my right-wing fans of my Trump impression. They would write the, congrats, bro, you just lost half your fans. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I lost half of the voters maybe, but let's be honest, if I started with 300 million fans or 120 million fans, I'd be fine losing 60 million because I'd still have 60 million fans, not 8,000.
Yeah, and I would highly doubt that there's people who are still fans of Trump. I would bet money that there's people who are fans of Trump, gonna vote for Trump, but still find you hilarious and love your impression.
There are.
So I wouldn't say you've lost half of the people. It's like, okay, if you've lost the people who need the entertainers to fully echo what they feel, I guess, when it comes to politics, which is not half the people, I don't think.
And when people don't get impressions, it's funny. Like people go, fine. I'll do a Trump and I go, fine. Now do a Biden or else you're a political hack. And I was like, do you know how impressions work? I do a bunch, but it doesn't mean I'm not a jukebox. I can't just sort of go, oh, you want a perfect Biden? Sure. What, like that's
we don't say to our surgeons, like after they finish a really good heart surgery, fine, now do a leg amputation or else you're a dick, you know?
Right. It's clubs are much better. Clubs really are the best though. And people, like I always tell people, I'm like, my dream is still just one day to see a poster with 30 dates with me headlining, and that's it. Like whatever comes after that is great, but that's to me the peak, because I've done clubs where you're in conservative areas, you're in liberal areas, and there is not a consensus when you go to a club, but there is sort of a, no matter who it is, like a 90% and above, we're here for laughs. You might get one heckle in 3 shows or something. Like, I know there's clubs that can be rougher than others, but like, there is this sort of, I'm here for stand-up and I understand the general rules and the general culture around stand-up. And so I can be left of, with, and especially as somebody who's not a name, you're often featuring with a variety of different people. So you might have this lefty comic, this non-political comic, maybe a guy who tilts right, but the people who go to a stand-up club generally have bought into, yeah, I know the rules. I know the general rules. Yeah, is it possible somebody could say or do something that's really, really pushes the boundaries or makes me uncomfortable? Yes, but it seems like that. I've worked with a lot of different people of a lot of different, yes, Patrice O'Neill, I got to open for him a couple times. And yes, did 1 or 2 hecklers in 12 shows get offended? That was like one guy in 4 shows. Or like when I remember opening for Gary Owen when I first started out, one guy in 6 shows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there is this sort of buy-in, and that's why I like comedy clubs so much, is that it's just the best. Everybody knows, almost everybody knows what's happening. That's why those videos go viral when something happens, because they're actually more rare than you'd think. You know what I mean? Like, oh, guy crushes
the heckling
hecklers.
videos. Yeah.
It's those are rare. Those aren't like the norm, which is great. Whereas on social media, the norm is a contentious just debate, an outrage over humor.
Right. So like, yeah, in that weekend where you had one heckler, like that was what you said, 4 shows, you had 1 or 2 hecklers, and think about how many jokes are in 4 shows. And that's, you take that ratio, but to Twitter, it's like, oh, it's, every fucking tweet you could get people heckling you on it. So,
and a comedian, you usually shoot it down, and then a lot of the time a crowd will be like, boo.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And then it's over. Guess what? It's the boo comes and goes, you move on, you adjust.
Oh no, I mean boo the heckler.
Oh, yeah.
Jump on the heckler and be like, shut up.
Oh yeah. Right, because it's like you came here to see me. So, whereas with Twitter it's like the other way around. It's almost like we go to Twitter to see the people, and that's why they have too much power, I guess. I don't know. I mean, people only have as much power as you give them, ultimately.
I give them so much power, though. I can't resist. I'm always getting this advice. Like, I've gotten advice from some famous followers, like actors and stuff. And they'd be like, I love your stuff, but just when people hate on you, just let it go. Don't get into it. Your fans know you're good. And that's very nice, reasonable advice. It's not like bad advice, but I go, here's the thing. You know me on Twitter because you think I'm some sort of Twitter character actor doing like little gimmicky Twitter videos, but I'm really a comedian and a stand-up comedian. So I'm going to engage. Like, if somebody accuses me of stealing a bit, this isn't just haters are going to hate. I'm like,
no, that's a big deal.
No, that's it. I spent 16 years before this year, like struggling and being like, well, I don't have a lot of gigs. I don't have a lot of money, but I've got my integrity and I've put on a good show and worked hard. If you take that from me and be like, you thief, or that's her act, or that's his bit, I can't let that. I said, I don't care if the person has 6 followers. That tweet is sitting there accusing me of stealing or of not being original or not being this or that. So I feel like a lot of people don't get that I'm not here to be an actor or an entertainer. Like, I write my stuff. Like, your screenwriter would be very offended if somebody said he ripped off the script for the movie that made you famous. It would be a totally different thing because that's his or her creation. And comedy is the all-in-one. You are the creator and the performer. So all of it is very personal.
Yeah, and you're also the marketer. It's like you really have to be like a one-man band, especially like in 2020. But like, I've noticed, like, not in the last 6 months, I've taught us comedians like a valuable lesson. Like, I mean, if you haven't sort of semi-pivoted to something else, like, you might be kind of on your way to being done. I mean, how can you? We've all had to kind of focus on other stuff to make money or to like just express ourselves, and it's it's something that nobody really saw coming. But I think it's just like, it's a big compliment to you that you were able, because I remember there were times, JL, that you were like, fuck it, I'm going to quit comedy. I feel like I've heard you say that and really mean it and really put it out there and put out long posts, like goodbye posts on Facebook, like more than once. I feel like you were going to fully, seriously quit comedy.
Well, the truth is, I live in, like, I never quit comedy, but what I did was last year when I was really just, it was no longer this sucks, I don't get respect, it was more like, okay, I'm 40, it's time to reevaluate my life. Okay, my entire 30s and half my 20s were spent chasing this and prioritizing this. And I got a job at a law firm that fell into my lap. I was not pursuing it, and it was a great job. And it from an agency that I was working with, and I was like, I can't pass that up. It's too much money. It's benefits. And I was just like,
like, yeah, I want to get my teeth checked. Yeah.
Right. If I pass this up, I don't know the next time something like this will. So I said, okay. And then I moved to New Jersey for more space. And I just sort of said, I'm going to keep pursuing some road gigs. I wrote a pilot on the weekends last year, not all last year, but in the last 3 months of the year. And I was just like, okay, I have to pivot. I have to I'm going to keep doing creative things, but I'm going to need more luck now. I'm not going to be grinding as hard as I was before. And the COVID hit, and it totally changed the trajectory of my, it's so bizarre and so weird to be like, oh, if this hadn't hit, I'm probably just, hey, I got a feature gig at Helium, or I'm at Governor's for a weekend, and that's it. And then it's like, and I write on the weekend, I'm trying to pitch a script, but I got this job now, so that's the priority. And it totally, it totally changed the trajectory. And now I still don't know what that means, because I don't know when I'll be able to really get out there again. But that was the real quitting, I felt like. It wasn't the times that I get really frustrated and I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, because something would pop up. Yeah. I would get on the Adam Carolla show, or I would get this credit or something, or a video would go viral and I'd be like, hey, looks like I'm sort of back in the game a little bit.
Yeah.
But this really felt like the end of it, because I was just like, I don't have it in me to keep hustling for, I can put in the work, but when you're stuck as a feature for 11 years, you're just kind of like, it's like other people would leave that job if they were stuck, and if they never got a promotion, they'd be like, I like the company, but I need to do something else for family, for happiness, for ambition. So yeah, I would often talk about quitting, because it's frustrating feeling like you're on a hamster wheel when you're getting better and you're hustling, and you feel like you've hit a ceiling, like you're getting better, you're doing all the things you need to, but it's not happening. And that's the frustrating thing about comedy, is there's no vice presidents of comedy. You're like a mailroom clerk. Yeah. And then one day maybe you're the CEO. There's no hey, I'm a VP of humor. It's like, no, you might struggle for a long time and never make it, or you might hit it big because of some stupid internet videos, and all of a sudden your life has changed. So.
Yeah, when I started out doing stand-up as by doing improv at UCB, I was like, did I want to get on SNL? I just knew I really loved improv, and it was fun, and it was something I felt like I was really good at. And then I was always really scared of stand-up, but then it's I did a one-woman show, and I was like, all right, well, stand-up seems really doable now. So then I ended up going into that because I was sick of renting a coach in a room every time. I wanted to feel creative and funny, and stand-up is so much more autonomous. And then
that's such a good route you took, though. That's the reverse sellout route. I started with improv, then I did a one-woman show, and then I did stand-up. It's usually you find people going, I did stand-up for a while, and then I said, how do I do this with fewer laughs?
Yeah.
How do I do it with fewer laughs? Improv.
And then I was also the only people who ever make money at improv are TJ and Dave, who do Sonic commercials. They're masterful improvisers. I don't know if they used to perform at the this downtown theater in New York. I forget what it was called, but I saw them perform a few times, and it was a masterclass in improv. They're so underrated. They would perform like a fucking hilarious comedic play. It was like a play. It was so good. I was like, I can't believe they're both just pulling this out of their asses, but they were so good at listening, and they worked with each other for years. But I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna.
I take back my improv slander then.
No, your improv slander is 100% warranted, because most people fucking suck at improv, and they never realize it. Like with stand-up, you get immediate feedback, whether you're funny or not. And improvisers seem to never get that. And they just, as long as they keep having $400, they keep doing classes and they stay in it. They just like, it takes longer, I think, to wake up. You know, it's easier to delay the truth. I think like they just never really know how bad they suck. And even if they're great, like there's such a limit on, it's like that same thing, like, well, you're not going to be promoted, you know? But a lot of them just stick around for years. I don't know why I started to bring that up. The realizing that you know, we all do comedy where it's like, you just have to keep knocking on different doors. You have no idea. There's no roadmap for this stuff. There's no like, these are your strengths. This is what you should do. Like there is with almost every other profession. You just have to like work hard. Maybe you have luck, maybe you don't. And then you have to adjust, because that is when you start wasting your time, when you're like, okay, what I've been doing isn't working. I gotta, you know, try something else out. And the worst thing would be like, yeah, like you, it's like you're college educated. You went to law school. For you to have turned down that well-paying law job, you would have been a fucking moron, man. And then it's like, you know, yeah, we all want to have health insurance and like, you know, keep our teeth in our faces as long as we can, and try to buy vitamins sometimes. And so nobody can fault you. It was really
the loss of flexibility, I think, because I've been doing legal work for the last, I was, you know, obviously an attorney out of law school for a few years, but then I was doing part-time legal work, which was like keeping the dream alive, because it was like, oh, if I need a month off, hey, I'll do 3, you know, I'll be at a Helium, a Funny Bone, and an Improv in July, so I won't work that month. And it was nice and pleasant. It's nice to also have a month just to experience hey, I wake up, I go to the gym, I write a little bit, and I kind of relax, because I'm making my money from the greatest fucking job in the world.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you fill in the gaps with regular work, but I just said, I can't live that month to month. I was never broke, but it was always like, okay, got my money for July. We're good for July. Now we'll start working on August. It's nice to not worry about that. And sometimes people, I think there's a romanticism among the very unsuccessful and the very successful in comedy have like the same outlook. You know what I mean? It's like, you just got to do it, man. You just got to get out there and just say, fuck it. And I'm going to go for it. And it's like, well, that's easy. Like, you have 0 career options. So you're just like, fuck. And you make $10 million a year. So you romanticize how easy it was in the beginning.
Yes.
But in the middle area is you always got to make these decisions on how you're going to live your life. Is it worth continuing prioritizing comedy? Is comedy number one? Because you have to start doubting it sometimes you just have to say, man, it's been almost like my career until this year was like, it's almost been there like 3 times. And that's enough to fuel you for a while. But then you start to go, I got a little bit of a gut now. I'm not Mr. Muscles like I was when I was 30. I don't really have a big social media presence. Is this really going to happen right now? Have my best years, have my best shots already been fired? So, and then a pandemic hit. So apparently that's all I needed was the end of the world. And they were like, fine, JL, you can finally get some fans.
We'll throw you a bone. And you know, it's so interesting, that whole, like, getting back to glamorizing, like the hustle, the work. And like, I've even made jokes about it, you know, but it's so true. And you'll find, especially the people who maybe didn't go to college, they don't have another option, they have like no other skill, then they'll be like, you know, I made this my only choice. Like, I decided there was no turning back. I quit my job and I fully committed, you know, and almost like that's like, oh, wow, that sounds dangerous. It is dangerous. It's like, but that's somehow more valuable, or like that's more of a comedian than somebody who has had a day job the whole time.
Right. I told a joke late last year where I did the calculations. I talked about moving to Jersey, and I said, the thing about my stand-up career is, if you look at the math, the job I had in 2009 as an associate at a law firm and the job I now have at the end of 2019, I literally cost myself $1 million between 2010 and 2019. If you just assume I would make the same, not anymore, I'm like, I literally cost myself $1 million. Like I've crunched the numbers. I'm not using that as hyperbole or a catchphrase. And I was like, that has a value too. Like you can only squander that much until you have to sort of say, okay, it gets harder to get a good job when you're older. They're looking for younger, more malleable talent, people out of college. So like when this job came to me, I was like, fine, yes, because I don't think I'll get this opportunity again. And now I'm with my job. I'm like, I just want to do cameos and play video games all day. Now that I actually have money in my account, I'm like, I don't need you, job. But I have to remain grounded and say, you know what, next year it could all go away. I hope not. But comedy instills in you that real fear of like, yeah, you can have a good year and then you can have a terrible decade.
Oh yeah, there are so many comedians who late night spots don't mean as much now as they once did, but like I knew so many comics who would like get a late night spot and it's like boom, back to work the very next day. Like you're back at the mailroom, you're back you're back at the restaurant working. So I think
when I did Ferguson, I had to fly back the next day. I couldn't get 2 days off from the DA's office. So I was the coolest guy at the Bronx DA's office the day after I did late night.
Yep. And it's like, I remember I did this show Punchline on Fox a few years ago, and they, you had to it was one of the fucking coolest things. That was a moment where I felt like, oh, if this keeps going, this is great. I could get used to this. Like flew out to LA. I got to I dressed myself really nice, did my own makeup. I was like, I feel fancy and cool. And I get to do what I'm really good at. And, writing these jokes it was about current events, but then we'd have to go through and I don't know. It was less about the process. Sure. So I went out there, we shot a bunch of shows. And then I remember my boss at the time was very pissed that I had to go to LA to do this. He said, can't they move it? Don't they understand that you have a job? And this is a guy who was just center of the universe. One of these millionaire, big deal dudes. And I'm just his, I was just his lowly assistant at the time. So can't you explain to them? Why can't they move it? I'm like, oh, you want me to explain to this, to Fox that they have to move their production? And so I did it. I was gone for 48 hours. I took a red eye after the final shot. I was still wearing my big blue dress. I was still made up, hair done. Took a cab straight from the end of the shooting, straight to the fucking airport, to a red eye, slept in my dress and my makeup, landed in JFK at 6 a.m., wiped off some of my makeup, changed into my work clothes, and went straight to the office. And I was like, you're not shit yet, There's so many.
Oh no, that's literally the only thing I'm jealous about. That is that you said you slept. I had to take a rest, because this is the common experience. And that's why I always say being someone who's got a shot is the toughest thing in comedy, because you cannot let it go. You know how precious it is. So when you have a TV opportunity, it's I don't care if I'm going to be sick for a week after not sleeping for 2 days. I have to go. If you're at the bottom and those things don't come to you, you're just I do it for fun. Who knows what'll happen? And if you're already at the top, it's in that middle. And that's what this year has been like for me, where I'm basically working 2 jobs right now, because this year is great. But if this stuff dries up, as it can, I need that other job. Without a tour or a deal or something like that, I keep the day job. That's just what it is at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But I remember taking a red eye back to work because I was going to take 2 days off. And this was when I was at a firm. And they're like, we needed you here today. And I was like, but I was sick. Meanwhile, I'm going up at the Laugh Factory in LA. I changed my flight from the next day to the red eye. So imagine big me in a middle seat on a red eye with a cold. So I was like, let me take some Tylenol PM. Didn't sleep a wink. It just made me feel worse because I was now jittery. I had those you can't sleep jitters. Went to the office, the worst. But that's that you're afraid of both things. You're afraid of missing the opportunity. You're also afraid of losing the job that you need right now. So it's constant fear of is this the break? Well, hopefully, but if it's not, I also need this job. And that's such a tough mindset that a lot of comics have to, and I always, you always think of yourself as going through some unique experience, but your red eye experience is literally like my red eye experience, except mine was just for an audition. I didn't have the thing and I didn't get the thing, but I was like, but I have to go for the thing.
Oh, to get that, I had to sneak out and like start taking my lunch breaks again, because this job had beaten me down to a point where I felt guilty to take a lunch break. And so I had to sneak out and be like, I'm just getting lunch. And you never eat lunch. Where are you going? And I'm sneaking out to do this audition.
Right.
And, or like, making up doctor's appointments and shit, and like having to use every single vacation day to do road gigs. Forget going on vacation. Right. It's like you're using your vacation days to do a weekend in Hartford, Connecticut,
Exactly. That is why it's so that's why it's all so personal. Like when somebody wants to say, delete that, or you're not, like, you're just like,
are you fucking kidding me?
Get what's gone into trying to be a stand-up comedian. And it's, I begrudge no one their success, but I see there's a generation of comics sort of that came a little after me, whether, like the Mark Norman, even though they've been doing comedy most of the time, super funny guys like Dan Soder, Mark Norman, those kind of guys, where I don't know when they hit, if they ever hit that. I don't know their lives, so I can't judge, but it feels like they were on like a steady track. Not that it was always easy, but it was like, hey, I've seen you 4 years in.
Get after thing after thing after thing.
You're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, there were tough days there, but it was really like kind of like it felt like an escalator. Well deserved. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not saying this isn't about their talent, which is clear. It's more like, what do you do though when that generation passes you and you're like, all right, well, I know I have the respect of people, but I'm not getting the gigs. I don't have the management, but I don't want to quit. And it gets harder and harder to be at that second level instead of moving up to that third, fourth, or fifth level. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I remember I was like, and I have always loved and respected Mark Norman. I've opened for him a few times, and like, just insane talent, but I remember I was hearing like I don't know if it was a documentary or some kind of like behind the scenes video on him, and it's something like, I worked here for a janitor for 2 years. I was like, I would work for a janitor. I would be a janitor for 2 years now if it meant I was done doing shit I didn't want to do. I was like, I would take janitor for 2 years. I would take janitor for 4 years over fucking, secretary for 10 years or whatever. Right. Like the shit that I have done. I was just like, man, that sounds pretty good.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, my landline is ringing.
Look at you with your landline.
Yeah, that's another thing. I don't know what your experience with this was, but I used to have friends I got into stand-up comedy, and the problem was for me. Yeah, well, it's the ironic thing is, like, I remember doing bringer shows like 1 year, 2 years in, and I'm bringing like 25 people. Like, this is so awesome.
You're so cool.
And I was terrible, relatively. I would look back at my old tapes and be like, I would throw something at this comic if I saw him on stage. But I was good for a newcomer, and my friends all found it exciting. But then it gets to this point where, well, I have a regular job and I have regular friends, so I'm never staying late at the mics. I was the type of guy, I'd stay for like 4 or 5 other comics because I know the proper etiquette. But then it's like, okay, but I got a job at 8:30 tomorrow morning. You
can't stay out till 1, 2, 3.
Right.
You can't go to the diner at 2 a.m. You have to be up, showering, ready to go somewhere, probably 6 or 7. Yeah.
So it's like, it became this thing.
Plus the commute, plus, wherever you live.
Oh, when I started, I was living in the Bronx. So it would be like, okay, I'll be home in 80 minutes. But it's one of these things where you go, my friends from high school, like my closest friends, most of them faded away because it was like, they'd be going to happy hour. And I'd be like, I'm doing 2 open mics because I got a gig like on Thursday. So I want to be sharp, but sorry, next time. But then you go to the club or the open mic and you're like, oh, good set. Well, okay, I got to go. I got to run to work, like to go home so I can sleep for work. And then all of a sudden you're just like, unless you meet people with the identical experience who understand like exactly the balance, you're just like either a dick who leaves mics early, or a friend who's no longer being a good friend.
Yes. Dude, I feel this so much.
Let me get successful. I need to get famous so at least they see that it was for something.
It's so fucking hard. Yeah, it's like almost like you can't be like the ideal comic because you can't stay and watch everyone's set, like right when you're brand new, or you're not the ideal comic because you're not crushing 5 mics a night because you have to leave. Plus, yeah, let's say you've got a 90-minute commute and then you've got to be up for work in the morning. But then it's like, okay, your friends have to go, right? Because it's like you don't want to bomb your show. So
Right.
you got to get ready, got to do mics to get ready. But it's like, but you also like in the very beginning need these friends for possibly bringers. But you also just want friends just to have friends. And it's like, oh, well, you're always doing this comedy thing. You're like, yeah, I want to get good at it. It's almost like, are you? And then they kind of treat you like my family treated me like a hobbyist, like mostly in the improv years. Like, oh, they would say, oh, you're going to clown school again. You're signing up for another clown school class. And they would like shit on me all the time. My mom would be like, you know, you really should start just trying to date successful men instead of hanging out with all these weird improv guys, which they were. But like, she's like, you're wasting your best dating years with these comedy people, which I did. But it just, the success was not, I mean, the support never really came all the way, you know?
No, it's tough. I think like I got the late show pretty early. And I remember I was engaged at the time. And when I got that, this is sort of your sign when you're really with the wrong person. When I got my first late night credit, I think it scared her family that I was actually going to pursue it. And I was like, well, most comedians would be like, yeah, well, if you get a late night credit, it's probably at least it's one good sign that you're in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I remember her just saying, like, I think you should just, it was definitely her dad talking, but I was like, she was like, I think if you want to pursue, like, you should just pursue this as a hobby. And I was like, wait, after I just booked late night?
Yes. After I get the thing that like, yeah, is the sign that you're good and should keep going and are getting
and it was
somewhere.
Another like 6 years of absolute torture and pain without any recognition after that. So for a while I was like, maybe I should have made it a hobby.
You know what it is? It's like telling somebody who just finished med school to not try to be a doctor or not trying to work in the medical field. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? I passed a huge hurdle. Oh man. And then did you guys break up after that?
We did. Oh. Not like from that comment, but yeah, it was, but anyway, that's how you ruin what should be like one of the great years in your life, is to be like, I'm in great shape and I made my late night debut and my relationship is one of the worst things ever to happen to me.
It's really hard. It's really hard too. It's like whether you're a guy or a girl, there's different things that are really hard about pursuing stand-up. Like I know for me, it's like, I was never going to end up with a guy who was like, yeah, you have to not even have dinner on the table or something, or be available at dinner. I'm not even be available at dinner time a lot of nights.
We will do lunch dates.
Yeah. And like you have to, come to wherever I'm working and then I'll have to sneak out for a lunch hour. Or like so many of my dates were like, yeah, come watch me at this show or after this show. It was always really hard. Like I was never gonna be like a normal person. Or it's like, I mean, I remember I dated a guy, like he also did comedy. He was ahead of me at the time. I wouldn't even see him until like 11 o'clock or later. Wow. And at that time I had to be at my job at 8 a.m. So our dates wouldn't even start till like midnight easy, you know? And it's,
I think about a woman doing comedy. That sounds like such an offensive thing is about to come out of my mouth. But when I'm on the road, I think about this. I'm a fairly empathetic person, since I'm such a lib cuck. But I think like when I'm on the road, I'm a large person. I walk on the sides of highways. Because like sometimes your hotel is like 6 blocks. I'm telling you, one day I'm going to get picked up for a murder charge in like some small town. They're like,
it's Bigfoot.
We did see this big fellow we never saw before just walking on the side of the highway. Maybe he did it. But it's like creepy a lot of the road.
Very fucking creepy.
Right. Yeah. And I sometimes think, I'm like, it's kind of creepy for me. And I'm the person that people would most likely think of as a perpetrator of something bad rather than the victim of something bad. But it's like, yeah, I just walked, it's 11 p.m. and my hotel is, just yonder where there's no street lights for 3 blocks. So let me just head over there. What a horrible, excellent business and lifestyle.
Right. But probably like you're 6 feet tall, right? You're not a small man. So
6'7".
It's like 6'7". So yeah, you should have played for the NBA. Why'd you go to law school? It's kind of like this. thing of like, you probably feel okay. Like I've been at road gigs where it's like, oh, my comped comedian room, the door doesn't lock. It's like late at
Right.
night. I have to put a chair against the room, and it's like, maybe you're not scared in that situation, but it's like every comedian has like a scary road moment at some point, and like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the free rooms they give you are just like, they may not have washed the sheets, or like the bed's full of sand, or there's weird smells, things are sticky.
Indeed.
It's not fun. Why did we do it? Why did we go into this?
It starts, it's like drug dealing. It starts as like a fun thing. Nobody gets into comedy, I think, going, I don't like people who get in and go, who say like profound things about why they started stand-up. Like, to me, it was like, I was kind of depressed in law school and like thought it might be a good hobby. Like, I was like, let me try. It was literally like, let me try it, because I know I'm funny, but I don't know if I'll be any good at this, but why not try? It's something other than law school. But there was no like, I'm going to be a comic no matter what. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. And then it gets fun, and you get that one big applause break, or that one gig, somebody says, oh, why don't you do a guest spot here? And you're in front of like a club, and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it gets you pumped up. It gets you high. And I told people all the time, I said, I remember when I'd have a good show, just even a bringer show, like in 15 years ago, like the rest of the week, I was like, God damn, I am so awesome.
Yeah.
And then like about 2012, 2013 is when I realized I had kicked it, because I had a killer set at Gotham Comedy Club. I still remember this moment, like a killer set. By the time I was off the stage, I was like, well, that's done. Like, it was no longer, it wasn't like a bad thing. It was just like, okay, now I'm going to go get some Shake Shack like 2 blocks away and like go home.
Because that feeling is not followed by,
it's not going to trigger
different.
what you thought would happen. So it's like, you think I might become a star when you get your first like big applause break or something. You're like, I think I might be one of the all-time greats. And then like 10 years in, you're like, I'm really good, and nobody really gives a shit.
Yeah.
Which is like, probably a little healthier. You don't want to be depressed about it, but it's obviously healthier to be a little more grounded and reasonable. But that's what happens when you're at it for so long. Now you want to get, like, for me, like I said, if I could book a tour, like a legit tour, and headline some of the clubs that I've featured at for a decade, that would be probably a new high, because you're like, oh my God, I reached a new level finally.
You could do it. You could do it, man. Like, these clubs, like they just want you to, of course, I mean, there's all like, they're all over the map. Some just want you to fill the room. Some are like comedy purists and like really care about the craft. And then there's some that of course like want both, but I think now, I mean, you've got like 150K plus Twitter followers. Like, you definitely,
and at least 500 of those like stand up.
I think you could do it. I really think you could, like, I mean, I'm shocked that you weren't headlining more before, but that's the name of the game. It's just about like, how many people can you get there? And if you look at somebody like Anthony Rodia, who was doing stand-up for a while, and then he kind of stopped to like sort of study social media, and then he came back on the scene, and he was doing all these funny impressions. He was using like the Snapchat filter, which made his mouth really big and the eyes, and he does all these characters that's like uncles and like different people in his family. It's all like Italian like humor, and impressions and stuff. And he fucking came back into the stand-up game and has been fucking crushing it. And I mean, I haven't been seeing what he's been up to since like the lockdown, but like since he came back out, like, and he was headlining everywhere, and headlining with his combination of like his impressions that would like crush it on Facebook and all the different like, social media like places, but he was also doing his stand-up. So he is an example of somebody who kind of blew up over impressions, but was able to turn that into like a really great, tour even. And his stand-up, like, it's kind of like he made it both work. I mean, like, maybe he's somebody to talk to, but I mean, I see him and I know it can be done. And you've got a big enough following where like they're gonna, clubs, they can't not take you seriously at this point. They go, oh wow, shit, he's gonna.
That's why I want to start at least with the clubs that I have relationships with, and be like, come on,
Yeah.
my 10 feature gigs in a decade plus this has to be worth a shot.
I would say you're there.
Right.
They would be dumb. They would be dumb to turn somebody down like you who's so funny and has and now a much bigger draw and like,
Right.
yeah. I mean, like, I remember that fucking winery gig. It was great. Yeah. I was like, Jan's fucking funny. I mean, I know we've done other shows together, but that's one that really stands out for me. When did you realize like, hey, I do a pretty good Trump impression?
Well, the funny thing is, I thought I did a really good one as early as 2014, and I have since watched those videos, and I'm like, ugh, I would hate that guy. But he was faster talking. I realized when they showed clips of him recently from like the campaign, he was, much more animated than John McCain. Okay, excuse me. John McCain is not a hero. He's not a hero. Okay, why? Because he got captured. He was still kind of like New York fast. So I wasn't as inaccurate as I thought. But once he became president, the guy's on TV. They said it's like billions of free media. Like from 2016 till, he's the biggest story every day. And by about 2018, when I started doing the podcast with Jay Nog, who approached me, this was one of my, I think I'm going to quit. Like I ended my other podcast, I brought it back, but I was like, and he came to me and said, would you want to do a podcast with Trump? I said, hey, if you want to do all the technical work and like start it up, fine. From that is where it really got good, because I was doing an hour as Trump every week for like 2.5 years. Yeah, I've done more work as Trump than I think any actor has done a character ever, because we've done 120 45-minute episodes, plus all the videos I've done.
This is of making podcasts great again, which people can where can they find it? Just anywhere podcasts are sold.
Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, the usual suspects. But so around 2018 is when it really got good, like when it was really at sort of the level it's at now. And I remember thinking, quitting story number 19, I was like, but if I'm not even getting any shine off of my Trump, which I know is legit, who's going to care about my stand-up? Because at least the Trump I know is like this amazing fastball that I throw. So at least somebody should see that. And other people were getting shows and private gigs and other things, like many different impersonators. And I was like, and I'm just sitting here doing like free work for Corolla and ESPN radio, just trying to get my name out there. So I was like, well, if the Trump's not going to work, then all of this is probably not going to work. And then COVID, once again. Sounds kind of like my last name, so maybe it felt a kinship.
There was one of your videos. It's where you're doing Trump and he's talking about Easter. It has like 2.5 million views. Is that your highest one?
Yeah. That was 7 mil on Twitter and 2.5 on YouTube. Yeah, it was crazy because I did not. People always ask. They're like, did you think that was going to do it? I was like, no. How could I think that? That never happened. So why would I think
if you're used to years of putting out good shit and getting nothing to little, why would you think you're going to put out more good shit and get 10 million views?
Right.
Yeah.
I was just like, I had done a video 2 weeks earlier than that. And Lori Kilmartin and Pete Dominic, two comics, had retweeted, and it got like 40,000 views on Twitter. I was like, whoa, I got like 25 new followers. That was great.
It's a great day. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, good job, me. Okay, maybe I should do a few more of these. Now I do too many because it's like an addiction. It's like, well, this is going to pay me a shit ton on YouTube and pick me up. You do get addicted to it because you're like, there's money and there's
comics. We lean into the stuff that's working for us, like the jokes that people laugh at, we're going to keep doing. So nobody can fault you for that. That's
why I try to at least mix in other impressions, like with that video I did, where it's like, okay, I at least need to show people something else, that it's not just me as Trump for 90 seconds a day. But that video, after I was like, oh, nice. Like, it didn't hit me until it got like 500,000 views. I was like, this thing's on fire. But I was just like, yeah, why would I think I'd go viral? Because I thought I'd go viral like 8 different times. The Louis C.K. video went pretty big many years ago now. But that was it. That was like my one really huge thing. And yeah, that's you lower your expectations, as a comic. You try to keep putting out good stuff because it becomes about your own pride a little bit too. And and then, yeah, that blew up, and it was crazy. But, you know, it was a good thing. It was a little overwhelming, to be honest, because I would have much preferred the gradual career rise versus the nothing, everybody up your ass in a 3-day period.
Everybody was up your ass?
In a good way, I guess.
How so? Like, in what ways?
No, it was like when you're getting some media contacting you, when Jimmy Fallon's person is saying, can you do it? Like, can we talk to you on Monday or whatever? And then of course they talk to you and say, yeah, we can't use you. Sorry. And I was like, why didn't you just leave me alone then?
Then they're like, do better, delete that.
No, and I don't even know what their reason was, but they obviously saw that I had blown up with this impression. And then they were like, oh, we love your impression. We want to get you on. And I was like, this is it. And of course, I tell my family, I tell my girlfriend.
I told my job to go fuck itself again.
Right. I burned the office down because I'm Fallon. I'm on Fallon. And then they were like, oh no, we won't be able to make it work. But I was like, all right. But it was just, people from middle school and high school and college and neighbors are like emailing me going, we just saw your video. Amazing. And I was like, wow, where
were you this whole fucking time?
Right. People are like, it's exactly. They, I don't want to be, you almost
so funny
triggered my bitterness.
Dude, I've gotten triggered too. Like it's mostly like for getting like a lot of online hate of stuff that's like funny, but like almost equally hateable. You know, like people like know, oh, someone like Chrissy Teigen's coming after you. And like, it's again, the people from middle school and high school that like love to come out and be like, oh, wow, I always knew you were funny. You're like, bitch, how come you haven't been in a show? Where have you been? You know, they come out when it's, you crack up on something or you blow up on something, and then it's almost like it that it's real and it's sincere, but there's part of your mind that tells you it's insincere. Yeah.
Right, because you're like, you know what, it would have been a lot less lonely or bitter or tough if like, you knew I was like, you were there when I started because of the novelty, and then you'll be there if I blow up. But it's like, I've been good for a lot of those years. And but people, and people get busy with their lives too. You can't begrudge people that, like, but at the same time, it's sort of like, you kind of want to tell people sometimes, like, just because I'm not famous or headlining it, like, you knew me as a funny person. So what do you think I am after 10 years of hard work at funnier? But that's our own issue, I guess. Cause it's a generally tough journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These fucking people. You know what I mean? If you're listening to us and you're fans, don't just show up when things are good, okay? Why don't you show up when we have a bad tweet or a weird video?
Yeah, like I'll remember like the 80 fans who were like following me after a good set at Helium. Like I'll be like, you followed me since like 2012. Tickets are on me, sir. Or man.
Oh yeah, I bought drinks for people. Yeah. Right. You appreciate that. So that'll be
fun because I'll be like, I know. I had somebody who said to me in like August, they're like, I've been with you since the beginning in March. And I was like, sir, that is not the beginning.
Oh yeah, you're just
at the beginning of the 20th chapter of my book.
Yeah, since the beginning, way back in March, I was like, you're just a dude who's like, I'll try my hand at comedy by doing this Trump impression. Oopsie, I went viral. Right. Oh God. I love your impression because it's not overly nasty. It's more realistic, and they sound like, your impressions sound like things he really would say. Do you ever feel challenged by, like, because your beliefs are probably like, fuck Trump, I hate XYZ things he's done and said. Do you ever feel like it's a challenge to keep it that way since you don't like him? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever feel like, oh, you got to temper yourself?
No, because I want it to be 1 degree beyond him. Like I want it to be a little more critical, a little more absurd, but I'm not trying to do a cartoon character. Like I've had voiceover stuff for some late night shows that they rejected because they wanted cartoony. They were like, it sounds great, but can you do it like louder and bigger? I'm like, wait, this is supposed to be like Trump doing a podcast, but you want me to like yell like I'm at a rally? I can do that, but I don't think it makes sense. But no, I can't stand Trump. But what's weird is at least my whole thing as a comedian, and I'm sure you'll agree, is what I try to do is if I have views, if I'm doing anything comedic, I'll make a serious post once in a while, but I want it to just be, if I have something to say, I'm going to do it through comedy because that's like my language professionally. That's how I do it. I see a lot of entertainers who follow me, who are nice, who are very left as well. But it gets repetitive when it's just every post is like, vote for Trump, he did this. And I go, I agree, but like, I sometimes feel bad for actors where I'm like, oh, you need some scripts and stuff to like take, whereas I can weave my dislike of Trump, but actually do it in a way that people want to consume, that it's, I'm bridging the two. So it comes through a little bit that I think that I don't like Trump, but I'm not sacrificing the impression. Like it's a comedy bit first with a message in it. Whereas if I'm saying something in my own voice or something, then I don't have to make it funny. I can just say what I feel. But like if I'm using comedy, which is the main reason I use social media, I want to be funny first. And I'm good enough that I can get the message in there. Much like, as I've mentioned before, like Greg Giraldo. I think he was clearly a left of center guy, not across the board, but he could really get it through his material. And you didn't feel like, here's the clapter part, here's the lecture, here's the discussion. We're gonna have a Q&A after the show where we really break things down. No, it's like, here's my hour of stand-up. You'll be able to feel where I'm coming from, but we're all gonna laugh. Most of us will laugh, So that's why I aim for some accuracy and humor first. Whereas if I was just being totally stupid and angry, it would fail the comedy. I could do that, but it would fail my main objective with this. When I vote, I'm being serious. When I'm doing comedy, I want to be funny first.
Right. And I think that's where so many of these like left-leaning actors fail, is because they maybe can't improv. They need a script. So it's like when they're off book or trying to do their PSAs or whatever, or just on Twitter, it's like, ugh, it turns off so many people because it's preachy without something else. At least if you're a comedian and you hate Trump, you're like, well, it's going with a spoonful of sugar. It's like, and that to me is like, those are the most satisfying like tweets or jokes or whatever, when you're like, ooh, I can make a smart commentary on culture or the president or whatever it is. Plus it's funny and it makes you think, oh, that's the jackpot. That's
that's why I thought, and I remember you did that PSA. And it was so funny because that PSA really sucked. The one with like Jesse Pinkman and stuff.
Oh God, the black and white one? Like, I take responsibility.
It was so like, and I'm saying this, like I've gotten attacked. We don't have to get into all this, but I have actually gotten ripped. I am half Haitian. My father was Haitian. My mom is Irish. People look at me. They don't see either, but they assume I'm some sort of Mediterranean white guy.
You're Hispanic, yeah.
or that, like Israeli, Egyptian, Algerian, Hispanic, like a whole range, but never what I am. But I was getting a lot of accusations, like, I didn't tell you not to talk about anything, but we don't have to get into anybody in particular. Sarah Cooper, though, I'll mention it just so people know who I'm talking about, blew up. I mean, blew up.
Oh, yeah. Didn't she get a Netflix special? She blew up like during this last 6 months. Yeah.
And a network deal. So it kind of eclipsed my Trump impression, which was, why are you so mad? I'm like, because this is like, I'm not mad at her, but it is totally eclipsing what I'm doing. But I had multiple people come at me, and this is what the lines I try to walk in my comedy. Multiple progressive people attack me for being a white man stealing from a black woman, which of course literally offended me because they thought my impression was a lip sync, which of course is a compliment to the quality of my impression, but it was literally wrong on every level. And it was one of those things where I wrote some jokes about it that I will save for the stage. I can't post them on social media, but I wanted to say, when you have one thing sitting in my drafts was, when you have no black friends in real life, is attacking my impression your version of Black Lives Matter? Because it was one of these things where I'm going, you're wrong on every front. You're like offended. And I said to a guy one time, he said, you have to admit Sarah Cooper being a black woman makes it a little funnier that she's attacking Trump. And I get the irony of like, if you believe Trump is a misogynist, racist, I get it. But then I wrote to the guy, I was like, well, I'm half Haitian and Trump actually called Haiti out specifically, but I get it. You see Adam Sandler when you look at me and you don't get progressive points for supporting me.
So just so I'm clear, you've been doing this Trump impression obviously for a while. And then Sarah Cooper, who I know, I'm aware of, I don't follow her super closely. She was also doing a Trump impression.
Well, she was doing the lip syncs, the TikTok
the lip syncing,
lip syncs.
right. And because she's like,
more people knew of her. Like she blew me away. Like I had a huge following, but she went in the millions. She has like 2 million followers.
And because
so more people saw her stuff. She got more coverage. She was more well-known. So then people started seeing my like 20th video, you know, and going. And
they think you're ripping off of her. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of the genius. I literally get people going, Sarah already did this. Could you do your own thing?
Suck my dick. That's so frustrating.
Right. And I was just like, they don't get it though. They don't get the double offense. Like I get it. Most people don't think I'm half black. You look at me, you think something, but you don't think
Where is it? Where is it, JL? Where are you hiding it?
My hair is like slightly kinky when it grows out. It's like Terrence Howard.
You should grow it out like Trevor Noah and then be like, people be like, oh yes, there it is. There he is.
But it was one of those things where you're accusing me of stealing. You don't think that's a big deal. You think everybody is a Twitter comedian who doesn't have any stake in their material. You think you can you think it makes you look like a hero to accuse me of being a white guy stealing, because imagine the points you'll get.
Oh yeah.
For accusing a white guy of stealing. Like if I was a white guy, if I was Elvis Presleying Sarah Cooper's material, you get all the bonus points and cupcakes at your next meeting. Yeah. But, you know, and once again, these are people who I align with politically, but I was like, keep that shit out of my comedy, on top of the fact that you're fucking wrong.
Wow.
On all fronts.
So frustrating. Yeah. These are people that should be with you, but because you don't come across as like visibly black or mixed, well then, yeah, that would make me so fucking angry. Cause it's like, you're obviously like mixed. And so people go, oh, well, you're not genuine. And also you're copying somebody who's just been doing comedy for like 5 minutes, it seems. That must be infuriating.
And then and then it gets into a thing where it's like, why are you being, then it becomes, you know, they want to defend her. And I'm like, she doesn't need your defending. I'm just defending myself. Like if I say, fuck you to that, that's well within my reasonable rights. It's not an attack on her if I defend me from your accusations that are wrong. So it became like, I don't even know. I'm sorry. I went down this rabbit hole.
No, I love it. I love it. And it's like,
it became very frustrating because she sort of she eclipsed what I did. And I have to, that's the nature of the business. Sometimes somebody comes along and catches fire in a different way or a bigger way. But I don't even know why I brought that up. Maybe I just felt the need to talk about it.
Because, people were telling you that you can't do what you're doing because they think you're copying somebody else who, like, you know what I mean? In their world is bigger because they maybe follow her or like she attracts a different fan base or whatever. And it's really frustrating because you don't you're not passing as diverse enough. Therefore your fucking impression isn't as good, or it's easier to like pin you as a white guy copying like a black woman. Oh God, that would make me full of fucking rage. Plus you're like,
most people did. And of course I was seeing the 40 comments out of thousands, you know, it's not like it was this consensus, but those hit hard because they're attacking so much that is not me.
It's indiscriminate.
And then, right. And then you get you'll get blocked, or a few people would say, like a few people were like really stood their ground on it. I was like, okay, like, I don't even know what to tell you at this point. Like you're insisting that my dad wasn't black and that I stole her idea, even if my videos started 6 weeks earlier. I don't I can show you all the evidence, but it was, and at the same time I'm going, I don't even want to be known as the Trump guy. Like I'm glad that this gets publicity because I need that, but I really don't want to be in some sort of Trump war.
You're not a one-trick pony.
Right, who don't have my chops. And I'm not just talking about her. There's a lot of sort of people who've emerged from this. And I go, I am like, if you go see an hour of your 4 favorite Twitter comedians to emerge under
you
Trump,
run circles around them.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd rather just go, like, I'd like it to move in that direction. but it's hard to let certain things slide. And then politically, it conflicts with me because I go, I have to be in this awkward position of saying, well, no, I'm certainly not going to like side with the alt-right, but I can't let it slide that some of these progressives, like the ones attacking me, are absolutely absurd. And then you like, instead of just being able to say you're like weaving this, like, well, I'm not over here, but I do have to disagree with you here. And, you know.
Yeah. And you know what, like you shouldn't feel that way because I would say most of the people that feel as you do are kind of in the middle. You know, I wouldn't say just because you have a problem with exactly what we're talking about means that you're all right. It's like, I think most people that are kind of in the middle, and that's the thing is like this group or this like mob, whoever they are, where they feel like they've got to like stand up for Sarah Cooper or people like her or whatever, whoever they think their people are. And it's like, they should be fans of you as well. That's probably why it's so frustrating. Right. And I think most people hate that kind of shit, not just, you know, the very small percentage of people.
Yeah, comedy is just, and that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, what I was droning on about the like lack of familiarity with comedy, where comedy is so widespread and yet stand-up is so like becoming more and more disrespected. That's why stand-up clubs seem to be the only places where if you aren't a comedian, but you need a venue because you have 1 million TikTok followers, they're like, just do a thing at a stand-up club. And that cheapens stand-up. Oh, you're a wrestler who wants to tell stories? Go do stand-up. Like it becomes this, and it's sort of not right. We can't help it, but that it becomes this all-purpose, like just if you want to do something that isn't musical and maybe people will laugh, go do stand-up. But for the sort of, I don't know, it's all frustrating because I feel like a lot of these people don't get stand-up. Like you don't have to defend like a stand-up comedian the way they were defending it.
Right,
like,
right.
You know what I mean? It's one thing if somebody tries to fire you or if there's a debate about your material, but this idea of like, how dare you attack? It's like, what? Like,
you weren't attacking anybody. You were just existing and you were doing your shit before she was. So you were trying to explain that. And you're like, and also, by the way, my dad's Haitian. No, he's not. Let's see pictures. Yeah, that's really frustrating. But
it was frustrating at the time. Like now I'm just discussing it. Like it's over. Although it is weird. Like somebody wrote to me like a week ago after all this, like she's got a Netflix thing the end of this month. Like she couldn't give two shits about like anything dealing with me. But somebody wrote, you are stealing from the genius Sarah Cooper. And I was just like, again, still? We're still at this.
Yeah, do we not put this to bed? Holy shit. Yeah.
It's like, you are the only person not moving past this.
People love to not move past shit. I've had mixed feelings over time about the like bigger people coming in and taking up, you know, space and shows and comedy club rooms, like, you know, the YouTubers and such. And like, at first I was like, no, like this is wrong. It's gotta be, but sometimes these clubs do need fresh blood and fresh people, and they have a business to run and they need the rooms to be filled. They need to buy drinks and eat food so that everybody can keep working at the comedy club and so that can stay afloat for like, what real comedians.
Well, like
so it's tricky.
Daniels, I don't know if you've ever had.
Yes, I've opened for her. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. I thought there was a connection. I feel like I've seen, but with her, I remember weaving this line because she was working a club that had headlined me. So, you know, it was not a top tier club. And he was exactly the kind of guy. I remember I sent him an email when the club closed. He had one in Houston and one in St. Paul, Minnesota. And when it closed, I sent him an email saying, thanks, I really appreciate you giving me opportunities. Like, sorry, it's closing. And he said, I'm surprised at how few comics have written to me, which kind of shows you that comedians can be shitty people too. But with her, she was headlining his Houston room. And it became a thing. Like, people know how I'm like kind of a purist with stand-up. And so they were tagging me like, dude, did you see this bullshit? And I said, maybe I'm biased because the guy has given me opportunities, but he runs like a second or even maybe third level comedy club. He's giving comics like me shots. There is a price to doing that. Other A-list comics probably wouldn't even do his room because he wouldn't be able to pay them. So to give B-listers or C-listers like me a shot, I get why he'd have a Stormy Daniels headline, because that's going to be a sellout show at a top dollar that allows somebody like me to work. Now, when I see, an A-list club also doing something like that, that really has no problem whatsoever, it would seem, I might go,
It's tricky.
But it's a balancing act. But I sort of understood completely from the smaller club level for sure, that I wasn't as righteously angry over stuff like that. But then, a guy like Bo Burnham, who I think is a legitimate genius, still confounds me to this day, because when he blew up, I was so ready to hate Bo Burnham. I was like, this kid doing YouTube in his room, please. The fact is, he's a super smart guy and super talented. So like, I feel like what clubs and agents and reps do though, is you have one Bo Burnham and then they decide they're going to find the next 10 Bo Burnhams.
Oh,
it's like,
God.
There's you got lucky. Like Eddie Murphy showed up. You didn't find the next 10 Eddie Murphys. I'm sure they tried. You found Chris Rock 15 years later.
Yeah.
You found Dave Chappelle a few years after that. You didn't go now. I guarantee
can't cookie cutter people.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, just like when Zach Galifianakis blew up with Hangover, bearded comics became a commodity. So like, even though some of them were good, I felt like I saw so many more beards after Zach out, because the industry sort of says, you said we found one thing and now we're going to make 50 of them. And it's like, no, the one thing emerged because that one person was really good. But
when you put business people, that's what business people do. They go, well, this works. Let's make more of this. People like this. So let's, can we have 80 more of these? I remember when I opened for Stormy, I was like, she's going to suck. I remember I was like, I think I was hosting or opening for her at a club in White Plains. And I was like, I was very skeptical, because I was like, I know she's not a comedian. What is she going to do? And you know what? It turns out she sold out the room, and she was very entertaining for the audience that was there, which are people who like fans of hers, people that just want to be close to celebrity, people that wanted to meet her. It was like kind of a mixed bag, but like she really did her job that night. And she had, I don't know if she's had people help her write jokes, but it was a lot of her stories about being a porn star. She told this hilarious story about how she was working with this this new girl, and she called her in. She was like, look, I really need help. With this douche, I've been drinking this douche for a while and I don't feel any cleaner down there. And it was really funny because she was like, oh no, you're not supposed to drink the douche. Right. And so she, her set, it worked for her, and it worked for that crowd, and they were happy to be there. They were happy to meet her, happy to leave and tell their friends. And I was like, cool. I'm like, I learned a lot, because I was like, oh, she's, she's not, that's not stand up, but she's entertaining a room full of people. So I was like, okay, she gave a shit and made it work. And it's almost like we have to kind of dabble in these different worlds, just like real purists, stand-ups. We didn't train for the world of TikTok or even Twitter, depending on when we started as stand-ups. But it's this is part of it now, and it's the Venn diagram of looping things that you do to stay a success and make money and go forward. And it's I guess you just learn the way that we have to learn how to do social media, and maybe lean into our impressions or TikTok or whatever, or maybe Storm Daniels I guess I gotta lean into these these shows and these public appearances. So
it's just frustrating, because the only thing that bothers me about that, I accept, that's why I do podcast. The only reason I started any of the things I do, even though I enjoy a lot of them now, podcasts, YouTube, the only reason was because it was I need to do more platforms and have more places for people to catch, because maybe they'll catch one thing and it'll help the other thing.
Yeah.
But it does, I am so jealous though of 80s and 90s comics where it was just
they didn't need it.
You go perform, your whole trade is how funny are you? How good is your material? That was it. And it was you could get a development deal and you could be like, oh, look, I don't have to work that day job. I write, and I only have one thing. I'm not doing a podcast. And the comedy, I always wonder, comedy, and I think podcasts help in a certain respect because you're communicating, you're testing things sometimes, you're trying to be entertaining in multi platforms. But I sometimes think if I could put all this effort into just crafting my next writing. Hour, maybe it wouldn't be better. Maybe I'd be lazier. I don't know, but maybe everything would be laser sharp and my stand-up would be like, if you play guitar for a band, all you have to do is play guitar and be awesome at guitar. Yes, you might have social media accounts and stuff, but you're not trying to sell. Like comedy, it's like, look at me, I'm on Twitter. I'm funny on Twitter. I'm on a podcast. I'm funny on a podcast. Like you always have to be selling what you do. Whereas if you're a musician, it's like, no, I don't have to be, here's a clip of me playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a clip of me singing. I'm not trying to do something else with my singing. Listen to how funny I can be when I sing. Listen to how thoughtful I am. No, it's like, do you sound good? Great. We like that. Do more of that.
Yeah.
Spend all your time doing your skill. Whereas with comedy, it's like, do 9 other things that aren't all really your skill. They're like kind of relate. They're like cousins of the thing you want to do, but they're not the thing you want to do, which is what's frustrating.
Yeah, that's actually that's a really smart observation, because it's like you have to be the restaurant that serves pizza, that serves Chinese food, that has a buffet. But it's like
comedians have to be the Cheesecake Factory.
Yes.
Everybody else gets to be like, I don't know, something that doesn't serve as much as the Cheesecake
it's like,
Factory.
we do need to have a 10-page menu, actually. And there have been times where I've been straight up just jealous of Subway minstrels, because I'm like, wow, they're really talented. That's it, with comedy, it's like, you could never just up and do comedy on the subway. It never fucking works. You have to have people who want comedy, who like want to listen and pay attention. But with music, you can enjoy music absently. You can do other things. You can go to a concert, talk the whole time. It's not going to fuck with the musicians. So
that's what I said about my late night credit. I said, if I were a musician, I would have had like a top 5 hit in 2007, and I'd still be living off of that hit.
Yeah.
Be in a bar and I'd be like, oh, they're playing my 2007 performance. Awesome. Whereas in comedy, it's like by 3 months later, it's like, what else you got? That thing's dead. That's gone.
Yeah. Do we have something that you're not copying of Sarah Cooper's? Yeah. Didn't something happen where you or someone dubbed your impression of Trump over something like a real footage of him, and then it was like marked as like manipulated media?
Yeah, that was a highlight of mine, just in terms of what it said about the quality of my impression. A fan of mine took audio 2 different times from my podcast. One time he did it to a Fox and Friends clip, but he edited it so that every time they went back to the Fox News host, they looked like a little sadder. So like he was just taking from different broadcasts. So by the time I was saying outrageous things at the end, like Steve Ducey was like horrified looking. He was like, so it made it more believable. And then the other one was Trump in I want to say a factory or something, where he had a mask on, so you couldn't read lips. It made it a perfect chance to, and he pretended like it was, I think he said Project Veritas, but the guy's account said like Parody News Network, but nobody paid attention to that. So they're like, I can't believe they did this. And like, I got contacted from various news services, like, can we confirm that it is your voice and not the president on that? And I said, that is me. A fan made that. And the fan was cool. He was like, if you want to throw me under the bus, if you get in trouble, that's fine. I was like, I'm not going to throw you under the bus, but I will say you did it.
Wow.
So that, yeah, it's the kind of thing where I feel like, Sacha Baron Cohen might be proud of me or something, but no agents or managers care.
I feel like agents and managers, they don't even know. I mean, do they? It's very easy for me to say that as a person without an agent or a manager, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's the whole industry is blown up, and it's like, you can make such a name for yourself and have success and make money without any of those things right now. So
the only reason I think I want an agent or an agent in particular is for the just ease of getting the work, but also somebody who knows what I'm worth, who can analyze what I'm worth. Because right now I'd be like, 5 shows, $900 in a hotel sounds great. And meanwhile, maybe I'm selling myself short $3,000. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah.
But I had a guy say to me, I had a manager for 2 months this summer who got nothing for me. And I said, I'd like to terminate this now, even though you haven't taken any money, because if you can't get me anything right now, I might only go become more irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like if I'm being realistic, I might become more irrelevant after Trump's gone. So this would be the easiest time to pitch me and to get me stuff.
Don't drag your feet now. You're hot now.
Right. And he said a manager, he had contacted an agent. He contacted a couple, one a big time guy, one a not so big time guy. But this cut for like an hour really deeply, which was, if he's been in the tri-state area for 17 years, why don't I know who he is? And I was like, for an hour, I was like, my heart was racing because it felt like such a deep insult. But then I thought to myself, I was like, but wait a second. I've been on Corolla. I've been on ESPN Radio. I have a legit late night credit, in addition to Comics Unleashed with Byron Allen, which I don't really talk about. It feels like a negative late night credit, to be honest.
No,
but it was because it was so weird when we did it. Like, it was like, it's such a weird show. But it's on my website and everything. I'm half kidding about it, but it's, JL, you like shopping, right? That's how yes. Let's talk about the big and tall store. But then you factor in also, I am big this year. So it's a weird thing to like say, and then I said, oh, you're probably kind of shitty at your job. Like, I am sort of big now. I get it. Like, this is the biggest I've ever been, but I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but it's like, I've gotten a lot of coverage this year. So you should maybe know who I am this year, even if the preceding years don't matter. And also, if you heard of me, why would I need you?
Yep.
I didn't get that either. I was like, if you knew, if I was a household name,
right,
I would be looking for like a third tier agent to get me some gigs. So, so after that hour of feeling totally
you came around.
Shame, I was like, oh, no, that's on him. That's not me. But you can imagine hearing that, being like,
it's crushing. Yeah.
I'm not significant enough.
Like, didn't you see me that one night at Gotham? I was fucking great.
Right, I have a library of Brigger DVDs. Come on.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's not his job, agent manager, whatever, to judge where you've been. His job is to work with you where you're at right now. Right. And it's like that, to me, that sounds like his way of, I don't know, negging you or something.
I guess.
That's a little shitty thing to say. Because you're fucking doing great now, JL. You're doing great. Where can people find you, follow you, support you, maybe get, a little snippet impression of their own from you?
Oh, sure. Well, I'll give them maybe at the end of this. I can, or should I just talk like Trump now as I give?
Yes, please give your fucking plugs as Trump. Yeah.
They've waited through 6 hours of me talking.
They have. We've been waiting.
So basically, this guy is sort of a failed comedian. Okay, JL, whatever, sort of a French name. He's a total libcuck. Okay, that's what Don Jr. calls him. But he's got a website, jlcomedy.com, where you can find all his sort of failed attempts at making money and doing comedy. He's on Cameo. He's sort of like, he's like a half Haitian webcam girl. Okay, total disgrace. He's on Cameo, where he does personal messages. He's got 2 albums as me, which totally don't sound like me. 6 stand-up albums. So, that's not going well because nobody's ever heard of him, including... I agreed with the agent, by the way, who said, I've never heard of him. I don't want to sign him. That's exactly what I would say. And mostly, I'd say you just go to jlcomedy.com. You'll find links to his YouTube and his Twitter, where you can see funny jokes that the libs hate and then strong liberal commentary that the conservatives hate. So that's why he has no fan base.
Dude,
okay, that's
so
it. Thank you.
You're so good. You're so good. Yeah, I wonder, maybe I'll put it in the notes, like, just fast forward to the end. If you came for the impression alone and don't care about the story.
This was like 8 Mile with Eminem. It's like, we waited an hour and 40 minutes to get the one rap battle.
Oh, but it was worth it.
It was worth it. Well, at least Eminem was. I don't want to judge for the audience. They may say that was a lot of inside baseball talk, but at least Chrissy seemed to vibe with the comedy talk.
Always. I'm such a big fan of yours. This was fucking great, JL. We'll do this again sometime. Bye.
Absolutely.